Have you ever experienced the feeling that the life you're living doesn't truly belong to you? As though you're performing in a play written by someone else, your parents, educators, peers, the entire fabric of society around you? And somewhere deep inside, a voice is desperately trying to tell you that something fundamental is missing? Every morning, you rise from bed, put on the familiar facade, complete your daily tasks, engage with others as though everything is perfectly normal. But eventually, when quiet moments arrive, that unsettling question surfaces. Who am I beneath all of this? The renowned psychologist Carl Gustav Jung believed this sense of alienation isn't random. Rather, it's a warning sign of a profound issue that most people lack the bravery to acknowledge. The vast majority of individuals navigate their entire existence without ever encountering their authentic selves. They confine themselves to performing social functions, wearing manufactured identities and meeting imposed demands. The most heartbreaking part? They convince themselves this is the entirety of what life offers. They pass away without ever having touched their own spirit. Which brings us to the most critical question of all. Is this your story? Part 1. The facade you present. What you identify as yourself might not actually be you at all. Your character traits, your wants, your convictions. How much of this genuinely originates from within, and how much was planted there by external forces? From our earliest years, we undergo conditioning to conform, to become palatable, to suppress certain dimensions of ourselves in exchange for affection. We construct a facade, what Jung termed the persona, a social disguise we employ for self-preservation. Yet the more we rely on this disguise, the greater the distance grows between us and our authentic nature. And eventually this facade transforms into the only version of ourselves that remains. Jung issued a stark warning. Existing in separation from our true essence carries a heavy price. A price we pay through torment, discontent, and an unrelenting sensation that something vital is absent. Have you experienced this? That regardless of what you accomplish, an emptiness persists, as if something crucial perpetually eludes your grasp? This occurs because what you genuinely require isn't located in the external world. It's not found in a superior career, an ideal partnership, or the approval of others. It resides within you, concealed beneath multiple layers of programming. The essential question becomes, are you prepared to plunge into your own consciousness and uncover who you genuinely are? Because this expedition isn't comfortable. Locating your authentic self demands confronting everything that's been suppressed, abandoned, or warped throughout the years. It means directing your gaze inward and encountering aspects of yourself you might prefer to ignore. But this also represents the singular route to liberation. In this exploration, we'll examine the voyage Jung identified as individuation, the transformation of becoming whole, of unifying every fragment of yourself and ultimately existing in alignment with your true nature. Are you ready to embark on this journey? Then let's dive in. Part 2. The hazard of existing solely through the facade. During childhood, you absorbed the lesson that acceptance required specific behaviors. Perhaps you were instructed to display politeness, to moderate your voice, to conceal anger, to satisfy others. Or perhaps you internalized that you needed to project strength constantly, camouflage your vulnerabilities, and radiate confidence even while drowning in uncertainty internally. Without awareness, you began sculpting an identity that wasn't exclusively yours, but rather a reflection of societal expectations. Jung labeled this facade the persona. It's the countenance you show the world, the iteration of yourself you engineered to achieve acceptance. And make no mistake, we all possess one. If you've ever behaved differently in professional settings, at home, among friends, or across social media platforms, you've already witnessed the persona's influence in your existence. Is it functional? Absolutely. Without it, social interaction would prove impossible. But a significant danger exists. When you completely merge with this facade, you begin forgetting who you actually are. Consider for a moment, how many occasions have you spoken or acted purely to gain acceptance? How many times have you concealed your genuine thoughts due to fear of criticism? How many times have you discovered yourself smiling while internally screaming? This happens because somewhere along the way, the persona ceased being merely a role and began controlling your entire existence. You're no longer an authentic person, but rather a performer, playing a character you never consciously selected. And herein lies the dilemma. The persona cannot nourish your soul. It can deliver acceptance but not satisfaction. It can secure praise but not authentic joy. Over time, existing exclusively through the persona creates a hollow existence where you sense something essential is absent, yet you cannot pinpoint what. And even more troubling, the tighter you grip this facade, the further you drift from your genuine essence. But if the persona isn't your authentic self, then who truly are you? To address this question, we must examine the opposite side, the dimension of yourself that's been suppressed and forced into the unconscious realm. Jung called this the shadow, and this is precisely where the genuine search for your authentic identity commences. Part 3. Facing your shadow. If the persona represents the facade you wear to gain acceptance, then the shadow embodies everything you concealed to prevent rejection. But here's the challenge. What you repress doesn't vanish. On the contrary, it accumulates power in your unconscious, functioning in the hidden recesses of your mind, shaping your emotions, your anxieties, and even the decisions you make without conscious recognition. Jung characterized the shadow as the concealed dimension of the psyche, comprising everything that's been repressed throughout existence: forbidden longings, suppressed rage, weaknesses you refuse to acknowledge, wounds you attempted to erase. And the most troubling aspect? Much of what inhabits your shadow isn't inherently negative. These are simply components of you that, at some juncture, someone declared unacceptable. Perhaps during childhood you displayed excessive inquisitiveness but were labeled bothersome and learned to remain silent. Maybe you experienced the impulse to express anger, but were taught it was inappropriate, and now you internalize your frustrations until they detonate. Perhaps you exhibited emotional sensitivity, but society persuaded you it signified weakness, so you learned to mask your feelings. All of this, every dimension of yourself that was rejected, didn't disappear. It merely concealed itself in your shadow, awaiting the opportunity to surface. And it does surface. If you've ever experienced an eruption of rage followed by remorse, felt jealousy toward someone, and attempted self-denial, or responded disproportionately to criticism without comprehending why, then you've witnessed your shadow seizing control. When we don't address it consciously, it emerges in distorted manifestations, undermining our connections, our professional lives, our self-worth. But here's the reality nobody reveals. Your shadow isn't your adversary. Conversely, it's where numerous invaluable aspects of your personality reside. Your inventiveness, your genuineness, your actual power. You cannot achieve wholeness until you incorporate this dimension of yourself. And to accomplish that, you must cease fleeing and commence looking inward. Part 4. The authentic self, beyond facades and shadows. If the persona is the facade and the shadow encompasses everything you've repressed, then the self, the authentic you, is what exists beyond these layers. It represents the entirety of your psyche, the harmonious integration of who you genuinely are and who you display to the world. Jung maintained that life's purpose wasn't simply following a predetermined route established by society, but rather achieving wholeness, discovering your genuine essence and existing in accordance with it. This journey of self-revelation and integration is what he identified as individuation. But discovering the self isn't something that occurs accidentally. It's not something that spontaneously materializes before you like a mystical revelation. The self doesn't unveil itself to those unwilling to confront their own reality. You must pursue it deliberately. And this pursuit demands a profound expedition within yourself. It involves confronting everything you've been conditioned to conceal. A reconciliation between your most authentic aspirations and the limitations imposed externally. The primary obstacle to discovering the authentic self is fear. Fear of losing the identity you've constructed over years. Fear of recognizing that numerous choices weren't genuinely yours. Fear of facing personality aspects you've denied for so long. This fear prevents many individuals from ever discovering the self. They spend their entire lives clinging to the persona, pretending to be someone they're not, while their shadow operates covertly, sabotaging their opportunities for genuine fulfillment. But when you begin incorporating your shadow and questioning the facades you wear, something remarkable occurs. You start experiencing a type of freedom you've never known before. You discover you no longer need to pretend. You realize you no longer need to please everyone. You begin acting more authentically, making decisions that resonate with you, not merely satisfying external expectations. And the most fascinating aspect, the closer you approach yourself, the more existence begins making sense. The anxieties and frustrations that once seemed inexplicable develop clear origins. You comprehend why certain patterns repeat, why certain situations affect you profoundly, why certain relationships never succeeded. You begin realizing that throughout your life, something within was attempting to guide you, but you were too preoccupied trying to conform to listen. Part 5. The unconscious and archetypes. The human consciousness isn't merely what we observe and consciously comprehend. Most of our psyche operates hidden, functioning at profound and invisible depths. Jung believed that discovering the authentic self requires more than examining our rational thoughts and daily decisions. We must plunge into the unconscious depths, for that's where the hidden patterns shaping our identity reside. But what precisely inhabits this unconscious realm? Beyond your shadow, beyond repressed memories and unacknowledged desires, something even more fundamental exists: archetypes. Jung discovered that the human psyche isn't a blank canvas. Conversely, we're born with universal mental frameworks, patterns of thinking, behavior, and emotion shared by all people, regardless of cultural background or historical period. He termed this the collective unconscious, and from this collective unconscious, archetypes emerge, primordial images that shape how we perceive the world and ourselves. If you've ever experienced an inexplicable attraction to particular narratives, myths, or symbols, it's because archetypes are operating within you. They manifest in fairy tales, cinema, spiritual traditions, and most significantly, in your own dreams and behaviors. For instance, the hero represents an archetype present in virtually every culture. It symbolizes one who confronts challenges, overcomes barriers, and pursues transformation. But there's also the sage, embodying wisdom and self-reflection, the rebel, who challenges conventions and questions systems, the caregiver, who exists to protect and serve others. And the most intriguing element, you don't select which archetypes shape your existence. They function within you beyond your awareness. The challenge emerges when you identify solely with one archetype and disregard the others. If you only perceive yourself as the hero, you might experience constant pressure to display strength, unable to accept vulnerabilities or weaknesses. If you exist exclusively in the caregiver role, you might spend your life prioritizing others' needs above your own, neglecting yourself. Discovering the authentic self means harmonizing these archetypes, recognizing which ones dominate your existence, and incorporating those that have been overlooked. Part 6. The peril of non-individuation. What befalls someone who spends their existence fleeing from themselves, who disregards their own shadow, lives imprisoned in a persona, and refuses to acknowledge the archetypes shaping their destiny? Jung was explicit. Evading the individuation process doesn't provide safety. Instead, it condemns us to a fragmented existence, saturated with anxiety, frustration, and an emptiness that external factors can never satisfy. Many individuals believe that conforming to societal regulations and meeting expectations will guarantee a peaceful existence. But this tranquility is merely superficial. Eventually, something begins malfunctioning. It might emerge as emotional crises with no apparent cause, feelings of dissatisfaction even when circumstances seem ideal, or the development of psychosomatic ailments. The body and mind consistently discover methods to alert us when we're deviating too far from our genuine nature. Non-individuation can also manifest through destructive cycles. Have you noticed how certain people replicate identical mistakes throughout their lives? How they enter harmful relationships, undermine their own accomplishments, or exist in perpetual discontent? This occurs because when we don't address what's concealed within, we become captives of our own unconscious. It discovers ways to manifest, even through suffering. Another prevalent symptom of non-individuation is the sensation that we're merely existing rather than genuinely living. This appears in monotonous routines, in lives devoid of purpose, in a sense that we're simply drifting without clear direction. This represents the reality for millions who've never questioned whether the life they're leading is truly the life they selected. And the most dangerous consequence of all, resentment. When someone ignores who they genuinely are, they inevitably experience anger. But they don't always comprehend its source. They might direct it toward others, blaming the world, systems, their family, or society for their suffering. Or they might turn it inward, transforming it into depression, self-sabotage, and profound disconnection from their own existence. Conclusion: the journey toward wholeness, discovering your authentic self, isn't a destination. It's a process. It's not something occurring overnight as if you simply awaken one morning knowing precisely who you are. It's a journey spanning a lifetime, a path of revelations, deconstruction, and reconstruction, confronting the shadows and liberating yourself from facades that have been imposed. And it's a path few choose to traverse. Most people prefer conformity's safety. They clutch their personas because they believe without them they'd face rejection. They avoid examining their shadows because they fear what they'll discover there. They ignore the archetypes guiding their lives because they don't want acknowledging they're not in control as much as they'd prefer. But this fear carries a cost: an empty existence, lacking authenticity, depth, and genuine significance. Jung demonstrated that true freedom doesn't lie in conforming, but in becoming who we genuinely are. This means accepting your totality, both your strengths and your flaws, both your illumination and your darkness. It means claiming authority over your own existence rather than being merely a product of your environment, culture, and others' expectations. It means abandoning the puppet's role and becoming the author of your own narrative. But this path demands courage. Courage to release illusions that have been comfortable for so long. Courage to confront your own fears and insecurities. Courage to accept that you might not be who you believed you were. And that's acceptable because now you possess the opportunity to become someone far greater, far more authentic, far more alive. So I pose this question to you. Are you prepared for this challenge? Are you willing to question the narratives you've been told about who you are? To confront the dimensions of yourself that have been suppressed? To finally exist according to your genuine essence? If something in this exploration resonated with you, share in the comments what aspect impacted you most profoundly. Have you ever felt like you were inhabiting an identity that wasn't truly yours? And don't stop here. The next exploration is essential to deepen this journey and comprehend even more about the hidden mechanisms shaping your consciousness. Keep exploring, because this discovery is only beginning.